back, everybody, to the LifeCraft podcast. Hi, it's Cindy.
And it's Jose. And I'm very excited about today's episode.
Yes, our episode for today, everybody, is on brand and purpose. Please introduce us to our guest for today, Jose, a very special person.
Yes, definitely. We have a very special guest today. Cindy, our guest is Michelle Barretto.
Yeah.
She is the CEO and founder of Vitamin B, a brand strategy and strategic design consultancy firm.
Yeah.
Michelle originally took up finance as her university degree. However, after graduation, she ventured into interior design, taking up another degree with the Philippine School of Interior Design. She was a country manager of an international brand consultancy and program director in one of the biggest global ad agencies before striking out on her own and building her own company. With over 17 years of experience working with different agencies such as Addison Design Consultants and BBDO, she's led numerous projects, mainly focusing on real estate, branding, strategy, and culture through her strategic insights and global knowledge. She's an advocate for branding strategy and design that are used for impact and for good. She encourages businesses to build the best brands by producing better products, by becoming the best employers, and by giving value to their communities. So today we talk about and get a glimpse of Michelle as a woman, as a CEO, as someone who lives a life of purpose, and as someone who leads an authentic and well crafted life. So, welcome to our podcast, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Lovely to have
Thank
you,
you.
Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. And, I just really am so glad you're here with us. My first question really is, can you tell us more about Vitamin B, your company, the work it does, and what it stands
Vitamin B is a branding agency, and we specialize in strategy, design, and experience. So I started a company in 2005, so we're 16 years. We're a boutique firm. We're 17 people total, and we work with brands and corporations to make their products, their services better, also to make them better organizations, good working places, and, companies that actually hopefully are able to give back to society in a good way. So it's really about, how do you make capitalism better? How do you create impact in what you do? We also spend some time working with amazing people in the field of, environment, social enterprise. And what we do is we realize, because we're multipliers, if we could multiply these people the same way we multiply corporate brands, then they could create more impact. So we work with people in the field of education. I did say social enterprise and environment. Basically, whoever we find interesting and we think that they will give good impact, we see how we can help them. So we're able to balance doing what we do very well with having to do good on the side. So that's pretty much what Vitamin B is about. I'm CEO and founder, and I also head strategy. And we have a full creative team composed of graphic designers, product designers, advertising, interior designers. So that's the mix of the kind of creative people we have. So that's Vitamin B in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's really awesome, Michelle. We had the good opportunity to be able to meet some of your team members. We were able to go
Yeah.
to your office, and I was really impressed by, number one, how beautiful your office
It
Thank
was.
is,
you.
but more importantly, the kind of people that you had in your team.
Yeah.
Like you, there were, there's a lot of positive energy, a lot of really good vibes, and this creativity for good. But that was my takeaway when when I was working with you. We had we had the small future thinking
Yeah.
workshop,
Thank you for
and
that.
Yeah, and for me that was really great.
Yeah, and it
Mm.
was really an amazing experience being in the same room with your team because we were talking about, the future, and one of the things that your group came up with was about, people, planet, and profit, and that, really I think it aligns with so much of what you're doing, and hearing you talk about your company in such a way where there's in every like project that you do, there's also something on the side that you give attention to in helping advocacies, organizations as your CSR, and even helping all of us through COVID. We can talk more about it later.
Yeah,
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 right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
And I think especially during this
yeah,
time, no, in today's world of fake news, misinformation, disinformation,
yeah,
malinformation, and this drive for capitalism. You mentioned about capitalism earlier, but
Mm.
probably a better form or better expression of capitalism. How do you think, how important is branding for individuals and organization for this time, for our time?
I think it's very important, especially post pandemic. So, the pandemic is like a great reset, right? So you have large companies like all of a sudden not being relevant or even not knowing how to move. At the same time, you have small companies who are very agile,
yeah,
right? So it's, after the pandemic, this whole shift just whacked the entire world, right? So as an organization, how are you, going to move forward? If you're a company that contributes, for example, to climate change, or if you're a company that, contributes to medical healthcare, right? How do you move forward so that the new normal for everybody becomes better than it was before the pandemic? So people think branding is about graphic design, like doing the
Right.
logo,
yeah,
the brochures, the packaging, and that's the fun part of it. Don't get me wrong. That's what makes our strategy and our ideas tangible. That's what makes it connect to you guys, to the audience, right? But all the insight that goes behind that and the strategy is important. And I think if you talk about again how brands will help um, companies, fake news, it's really on the strategy side. It's making sure that brands come from purpose, right? So, and again, that's
I
the
see.
challenge of large corporations. If you're a publicly listed firm, right,
yeah.
and you need to always think about your stock price, your external shareholders. That's a very, what I mean, not to say it's a very tough call. You need to deliver financially year on year, and at specific levels. Otherwise, your stock price will be affected. But that's why companies like Patagonia, right? They prefer to stay private, right? So they can stick to their
Right.
purpose more. So right now, like I said, when we look at brands, we encourage really brands to really identify their purpose. And again, with this pandemic, how to see which company acted on their purpose and which didn't, right? So,
Yeah, that's so
um,
right.
mhm,
Yeah, Michelle. I mean, sorry. I really love what you're saying here and how it is showing us really what everyone is offering at the table, especially not just this season, but you're right about thinking post pandemic and branding, purpose, they all start showing up for everyone. When you said the great reset, I love that. You used that term, that phrase, because it's like people had to really also go inside and figure out
absolutely,
what is it that I'm doing? Why am I doing this? And is this what I want to be known for in terms of what legacy do I leave? These
absolutely.
questions, I think, start, coming up for individuals and organizations. And so I also noticed that, knowing you from that futures thinking workshop that we did together and Jose led, and it was really fun being in your presence and that group that you put together because we were
Mm,
from different sectors
yep.
discussing the future. And so I also noticed that there's so much depth when you were talking about how you envision the future. And so that kind of growth that you have within yourself and also how your company has evolved, how did your growth and the work that you do impact the lives of others, knowing that you have these advocacies and all, like, I know that you continue to stay relevant to everyone. How did your growth impact the life of others? The lives
Um,
of others. Yeah.
I think it all starts with, and that was very eminent to me during the pandemic. So my mentor would always tell me, sometimes you look externally all the time, how do you
Mm-hmm.
help people? What can we do? First and foremost, when the pandemic happened, most CEOs really thought about, how do I take care of my people?
Yeah.
Right? So, my mentor should tell me, there's 17 lives that depend on you and their families, right? So that alone, you're creating
Yeah.
impact. So any leader, not just myself during the pandemic, right? When everything was so uncertain, everybody needed to really think about, how do I take care of my people, right?
Right.
Decisions had to be made. Of course, different people, different leaders will decide on things differently. But I think the first and foremost impact for me is how I am as a leader, right? I can't do things externally, but the way I lead and the way I take care of my people would be different. So I think I'm always reminded about that by my mentors, right? 17 people, 17 families, right? So medyo, it's kind of like always every year, like a pressure, like especially during
Yeah.
the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
But that's first. And then after that is, I think it was 10 years into branding. So I used to be employed, and then at around 10 years, I was at a point where I felt like everything I could do. I knew not to be arrogant, but I knew I was good at what I did. And maybe because I loved it. So I really put the effort in it. But
Yeah.
at a certain point, I felt like, okay, so you're making businesses bigger, right? And
Mm.
you're making the rich richer. I understand, I couldn't see me doing that for another 10 years because the companies are already rich. The people are already rich, right? So
Yeah.
I began to think, is this really what I'm good at? And this is, to the extent of what it could do. So I was a bit, again, at the phase in my life where I was thinking about it. It was unclear to me. And then, so there's this thing, I'm a conference junkie. So like I hop on a plane.
Right.
Yeah. So Jose was like, I
Yeah.
will get on a plane, to anywhere in the world, even if it's just for a day, for a half day session, if
Yeah.
I feel like there's somebody worth listening to. So, and I do that many times in a year, so I've been following certain conferences specifically. And at a certain point when I was thinking about it, I met and I listened to these designers who are talking about how design can change the world. And it was the first time, that was the first time it was laid out for me that way. I thought design was, for business. So they were
Mm.
talking about, what if
Right.
you design products that could make people's lives better, right? In healthcare or again, in communities. And
Yeah.
you can actually include these people in the design process, get their insights. And when when I heard about this, it blew my mind, right? It like completely gave our craft a totally new meaning. So,
Mm.
but nobody here in the Philippines is thinking about that, right? Nobody was even talking about that. So there was nobody to talk
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Except for, so I brought, so what I was doing was every year I would bring my team so that at least I could talk to people, right? My team and I, because, nobody else is talking
Yeah.
about it. But
Yeah.
we hunted these designers. I remember one time it was, so one of the two conferences we would attend is this International Design Alliance. So it's every 2 to 4 years, they have a global conference of the Interior Design Association of the World, Product Design Association of the World, Graphic Design Association of the World, and the Architectural Association of the World. So these four groups come together for one big conference.
Wow.
And one time, so what they do is in the morning, they get speakers to talk about specific causes. Like one is, for example, refugees and migration. So in the morning, somebody from the United Nations will talk, will show all their problems. And in the afternoon, designers who've done work in these areas will talk about what they've done, right? So we learn about issues in the morning, and then we learn about, how some people have done something in their field specific to that issue. So it broadened our mind, right? And one time I remember one of the design firms from the UK was saying there's a project in the Philippines that isn't ours, but everybody in the office is so fascinated by it. We've been watching it all week, and we wanted to show you. And everyone's like, what if that's our work? That's Gawad Kalima or something. And true enough, we showed it on stage like with 2,000 people. It was our project. It was the Litter of Light project.
Wow.
So I was
Nice.
super kilig.
Amazing.
I was super kilig. Like my team and I were
Yeah.
so shocked, right? At one of the events in
Awesome.
the evening, I went up to the guy and I said, we're actually the branding firm that work with a group and put together. Oh my God, how many? So,
Wow.
and that's when we began to really think, you know what, even if we do something little in the Philippines, and even if we're the only ones talking about it and nobody else understands, it doesn't really matter. You just do what you do. And there are people like you, maybe in other parts of the world, that you can talk to, who will continue to inspire you, and you can toss ideas with. So to the start, to be honest, it was a couple of years of trial and error. We had to look for the right foundations who were the right fit for us as well. When you come in with marketing and branding, right, a lot of things will happen. So that group also needs to know how to move. If they're
Right.
unable to do that, everything will just not happen. So what we found is that social enterprises were good for us because there was a business aspect to it. So we knew they would move. They had KPIs as
Right.
well. So
Yeah.
we helped groups like Messy Bessie, and then you met Lynn, Mano Amiga, right?
We
So
did. Yeah.
these are the people we help on and off. And during the pandemic, they just stopped, right? Us included. But I told you I had to take care of my team, right? So the
Yeah, you
first thing
did.
in order was we don't let anybody go, and we find a way to
Wow.
pay full salaries. So the
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing,
it's
Michelle. Not all companies did that.
true.
Yeah.
Again, different
Yeah.
decisions for each one. But one of the reasons
Yeah.
also was for us, we knew it was temporary, right? Meaning we knew that after the pandemic, our business wasn't the type where the pandemic killed the industry, right? So
Yeah.
for me, it was temporary, right? So I just needed to make sure that we could ride the tide, right? And then when the tide, was better, we were ready. So, but of course, some of our clients put projects on hold. We understand that, right? So all of a sudden we
Yes.
had a lot of time, maybe half the time, because, and I didn't want to cut salaries. So I said, look, we have this extra time. We've always, been inspired by all the people we meet and talk to in the States and all over the world. If there's an opportunity, wouldn't it be now? And there's probably the biggest problem the world has ever encountered. So we did that. A group came to us, and after that, everything just happened, it fell into place, and then we came up with the Medigi.
Yeah,
So,
Medijeep. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah. Can you
Yeah.
tell us more? Yeah.
I
so
About
love
that.
that.
it was a project that came up during the pandemic. So I told you we knew we had extra hours. And then some of my friends, they were amazing. They were actually coordinating donations for PPEs with hospitals, and they were getting overwhelmed because this was in April where, the need was so high
Right.
and, everything stopped. So they asked me, Michelle, can you help us structure all our volunteer efforts? I go, sure. And while we were planning, they said, we're actually meeting a medical expert tomorrow. And he works with all the doctors. They recommended us to him. And can you help us talk to him? We don't even know where to start. So this guy I think he's a paramedic trained in France. And he's Filipino, right? It's amazing. His name's Ruel Capunan. So basically, with a short call with him, and I asked him, okay, 3 questions. What is the biggest need right now? What is the most
Okay.
urgent need? And what is a need that nobody is looking into? And I said, because those could be 3 different things. So of course he said the biggest need
Right.
was PPEs at that point, right? This is in
Yeah.
April. The most urgent need as well was PPEs. And then
Yes.
what was a need that, again, nobody was looking into? And the reason I asked that was I knew everybody was, putting all the efforts in PPEs. So we we may not need, additional help there. There are other areas. And he said, actually, there's this need. There's this problem that might become a big need later on, and that's medical transport. So he said, the ambulance drivers are afraid to drive the ambulances because they're prone. You're in a closed, air-conditioned vehicle.
Yeah, they
with a
have to be
COVID
in
patient.
hazmat. They have to be in hazmat suits
Yeah.
Exactly.
if they want to be able to take them through, right?
Exactly. And this is a time when PPEs were unavailable, right? And of
Yes,
course, doctors would have them first. So the
true.
ambulance drivers didn't have them. So they didn't want to drive. So he said there was a case in Cavite a few days ago where, a gentleman had a heart attack and the LGU's ambulance didn't want to take him because everybody was so fearful. Everybody na lang had COVID, regardless of,
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
they didn't
Yeah.
want to
correct.
Right.
take the man because they were afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he said the man died. We're not even sure if he had COVID. So
Oh
he
my
said, and
Oh,
gosh.
so
that's
Yeah.
tragic.
going to happen.
Yeah.
So we said, at the time, the drivers also, jeepney drivers were stopped from livelihood. So we said,
Yeah.
why don't we use the jeeps? Because they're open air, right? We can pull them in. And, if it's open air, you don't need full hazmat for the driver, right? And we
Yeah.
can,
That's
the
right.
Yeah.
way the Jeep
Right.
is structured, right? There's a cab in front, and then the back part,
Yeah.
we can separate it. So, we worked on it. He said, you know what? If you show me a design, I'll show it to the DILG and have it approved. So I said, sige. So we put up a simple design, plastic. It's not rocket science. The reason we needed to do that, it had to be
Yeah.
cheap. It
Yeah.
had to be fast, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
we sat with him. We planned where, the plastic sheets were needed, what kind of PPE he needed. We planned everything down to the training program of the drivers and how the cleaning process would be. So we did that, and the DILG approved it. And then they said, you can now pitch it to different LGUs. So the well
Awesome.
pitched it to Mandaluyong. And then, so basically, we had it executed in Mandaluyong and the University of the Philippines in Caloocan, right? So the LGU basically, we found donations to set up the jeeps, but the LGU would pretty much pay for the daily wage of the driver and the gasoline, right? So,
Yeah.
and then they served as point-to-point transfers. The design of the system was important so that we would
Yeah.
make sure we weren't spreading the virus, right? So it had to be
Yeah.
point-to-point. The jeepney drivers had to understand that pag pinapara ka sa 7-Eleven, hindi ka pwedeng pumara, right? Because that
Yeah.
COVID positive patient could infect everyone in 7-Eleven. So the design
Right.
of the system was important as well. So yeah, so we did that. It worked in those cities for as long as the LGU was able to
Needed
afford,
them.
and afford also running it
Yeah.
because they had to pay the
Yeah.
costs. Yeah. And
Wow.
then luckily we submitted it to Design Vanguard of IDEO because IDEO was calling out designers from all over the world. Those
Mm.
who have ideas for COVID, please send it to us and then we're going to feature it so that it can be shared all over the world. So we submitted it and we were selected, which was another killing moment for us because, of course, IDEO is one of those,
It
right?
Yeah, it
is.
is. When you talk
It's
about
IDEO,
innovation, right? It's
exactly.
IDEO as one of
Yes, and
the
Yeah.
companies.
we've been
Yeah.
stalking them, Cindy. So yeah, I've been stalking them since 2005. Yeah, I even have
Ah,
fangirl
lovely.
picture. I have
Ah.
fangirl picture moments before in the conference with their founders. Like, I'm hugging them
Yeah.
with this big smile, and yeah. So that was kind of cool for my team too. To really see also that the work they do can create impact, and of course, for them to be recognized, right? So I mean,
Yeah, that's
that's quite nice
beautiful.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that in terms of how you've seen one problem, which are the how to transport the people, and you saw another problem, which is all of the jeepney drivers have lost their
Yeah.
jobs, and you combine them to come up with a solution that aim to solve
True.
Yeah.
those problems.
And
It's
and
pretty
they
amazing.
saved
Yeah.
lives. The impact is just huge. The lives saved, that being in the moment, like it just gives so much meaning and even greater, like I think for me, I'm just like it's a big wow for me, in terms of how other people could actually use it, like you being in that platform where the world could also use that, just us all coming together as a planet together,
Mhm.
and you representing the Philippines in your work. I just feel like, at least it makes us think, oh, there's so much good in the world. And
There, yeah.
Right. And I think
yeah.
it goes back to what Michelle was saying earlier about having an organization or living a life
Yes,
with
indeed.
purpose. So I think during that time, you sort of didn't know what you're going to do next, but you use that to actually go
Mm.
back to your purpose, and still continue, right? Maybe doing it in a different way, which is what you did, but it was still true to the purpose of yourself and
And
your organization.
Philippine design thinking, they talk about prototyping,
Yeah,
right?
they do.
Yeah. So
Right.
when we're talking
Yeah.
about design for good, and when we collaborate with brands like Mano Amiga, Messy
Mhm.
Bessie, of course, these are their businesses. These are their projects, and we assist them through branding. But this is an opportunity for us, in a way, to come up with our own product, right? So Medijip was
Yeah.
something the
Right.
team conceptualized
Right.
from scratch. We
Yeah.
prototyped it, we designed the whole system around it. So again, it allowed us, because, whether you're an advertising agency, a graphic design firm, or a brand consultancy, you're consultants, right? The product
Yeah.
is not yours, right? So this
Yeah.
one allowed us, kind of like IDEO, to create everything from scratch. And
Nice.
again, for my people, right, it was interesting to see that, they could come up with something from scratch. And what was
Mm.
interesting about this, to be honest, there's a bigger potential for this. The potential
Mhm.
really for Medijeep is to be an alternative, or an alternate emergency service. So
Yeah.
it doesn't only it can happen during a pandemic, right? But what if we always have floods, right?
Yes.
Um, can there be medibangkas or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
love it
then
so much.
Right.
in the in the
Yeah.
mountains there are landslides, right?
Yeah.
So can these jeeps also serve us? You know what I mean?
Assist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ambulances to assist these people. You put in
Yeah.
stretchers.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
back of a jeep can, di ba? You can
It
slide in the stretchers. So
yeah.
we were thinking eventually, imagine if you had drivers who were trained in CPR, who were
Indeed.
certified to be alternative
Right.
rescue
Yeah.
vehicles, or whatever you call it, right? So that, we're a country that has the perfect mix, apparently, the perfect cocktail of calamities, right? So this would
My
be,
goodness,
That's
true.
true. Yeah.
unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this would be something so useful. You get the citizens to participate, and I think people would be more than happy to help, right? But you need a system. You need training, everything, so that, again, when in the urgency of the moment, when these calamities happen, right, you have a citizen force that can help with emergency medical transport. So that's the bigger goal, right? To be honest, I
Yeah.
don't know how to get it there, because, of course, there's government participation, things like that. But that's the potential of actually Medigi,
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah.
it's just yeah.
That's
I
right.
mean,
That's
just you
right.
sharing that. It just like I was just while you were explaining, I could see like all of us coming together. It's like also everyone also shifting and upgrading themselves. Like also them finding like the jeepney drivers having a renewed purpose in what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And then people in communities jumping in to help each other in an emergency. And also it's like more of like preventative. It can really be first it came out of a crisis. This was the output, this was the product that you came up with, and now we can prevent certain things from spreading, from life being from more calamities killing people. It's just taking the lives of others. um, the potential is huge. And wow, I just have to say, props to you and your team, and even the fact that you can train them, that whole process of from womb to tomb of carrying out the Medici project. I really feel like it's how we also can move forward
Mhm.
in everything that we're doing right now in this time of the pandemic, post pandemic. we can figure it out na, and if we use the way you designed and prototyped everything, that whole people can learn it. Like in LGUs, they can think of other products as well. But I
Yeah,
hope that it goes really, really far.
I hope
But
so
this is
too.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
was phase one. I'll be honest with
Yeah.
you, I don't know how to implement yet. Phase two,
Mm,
like that bigger thing, because that's a bigger endeavor and a lot of stakeholders, LGUs, government. So we're
yeah.
not there yet. I mean, but like I said, the potential is there, right?
Yes.
Totally possible. It's just implementation,
Right.
and that's why we like collaborating with groups. So when we did our futures thinking session, right,
Yeah.
it was important for us to curate the people who would be part of the
Yes.
session because same energy, same intention or purpose, right?
Yeah.
So, and of course it's also a combination of skill sets. We don't claim to know everything, right? So we work was part of it because they're experts in policy. They know more about that than we do. So I when I have questions about that, I'll message their team to ask. um, Lynn is very good in education and very connected in the global, scene of leaders in this field. So that was
Hmm.
a nice mix. And to us, again, MediJeep wasn't just ours. We worked with a medical expert. So I
Yeah.
think these there are opportunities to really, what do you call that, cross pollinate, or all
Yeah.
these expertise to come up with innovation, right? And it doesn't have to be large, expensive, innovative, projects. It could be small things like MediJeep was, to convert a Jeep is like 3,000 pesos, but the
Not
impact,
bad.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's what our country needs. Um,
Yes.
more than the fancy
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you allow us, Michelle, we'll shift the
Mhm.
conversation a little bit. And you talked about prototyping, and it is an important part of design thinking, and of course of branding. How have you applied your discipline and expertise to your own life design? Uh, because our audience, the audience of this podcast, we'd like to inspire them in terms of to come up with their own, I would say, ideas and concepts, and also be inspired in terms of how they can lead an authentic
Yeah.
life.
And that's an interesting question. I always say I designed the company I wanted to work for.
Mm.
So, um, so yeah,
Nice.
I
Yeah.
mean, and ano ha, that 15 years also, prototyping, mistakes, everything.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Congratulations,
but
15
big
years. That's
mistakes,
amazing. Yeah.
tears, all
Yeah.
these, but, um, well worth it, right? Today, I can honestly say I designed the company I wanted to work for, right? So
Beautiful.
that's one of the things, because we always say at the office, work takes up how many hours of your day, how much time in your life. Imagine if you didn't um, like what you do, or if you didn't like the people you worked with, diba? You can
I
like what you do,
know.
but you don't like the people you work with.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
That's
so
true.
so yeah, part of that is just really conscientiously designing the company. When I say that, designing culture,
Yeah.
designing designing purpose, designing culture, and what will follow is even how you evolve your craft. The types of services you offer, the types of clients you choose you want to work with, and who you won't work with, right? So
Yeah, that's
that's all
important.
by design. Yeah. Who you collaborate with, that's all by design, right? And so in one aspect, I just realized that, yeah, I designed that. And if you look at how I started branding, I don't want to reveal my age. I'm trying to see how will I compute backwards how many years I've been doing it.
It's
But
okay.
when I learned branding, right? Then right? It was
Yeah.
done a certain way, and it was done the best way. It was by a global firm. I reported directly to the CEO of our head office in Singapore, who used to be the CEO of the US, and she was like an icon in the industry. So I was lucky to find difficult but very good bosses. So I learned a lot from. But I've what we're doing, like if you ask my creative director, even he's saying what we're doing now is so different from how we started, right? Even though
Mm.
that was, how global agencies are done, right? So we've pretty much again redefined, redesigned, whatever you call it, the way we do branding. So like
Yeah.
IDEO isn't a branding firm, right? But
Yeah.
we're a branding firm, but we've been inspired by companies like IDEO, not just IDEO. There's this architectural firm I really look up to. It's called Mass Design Group. So again, we take from companies like IDEO, we take from architectural firms, and I always say I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I can pick and choose the best from different things and put it together. So even the branding craft that we do, in a way, we've designed it to make it our own,
Yeah.
different from the market, but more importantly, authentic to what we want to do, right? So we want to create impact in areas like social causes, but in the corporate side, with our paying clients, we're responsible to bring impact too, right? It's not
Yeah.
just on the other side. So how do
Right.
we deliver impact here, right? So for us, it's really also about how do you make brands deliver more than just visual design? How do you create experiences for your customers, right? That, really deliver value for them and even maybe, make their lives better. So that's one of the reasons why we love real estate. We feel like if you make cities better, wouldn't
Yeah.
lives be better, right?
Indeed.
Right. Oh,
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Immensely, right?
Immensely. Immensely
Exactly.
better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's why,
Yeah.
like we feel that placemaking, right, has a big impact on people. So on the corporate side of what we do, right, we try to do that as well. We get insight so that, these developers really understand what people need and,
Yeah.
try to factor that in their planning, right? We think that it doesn't contradict each other. If you give customers what they need, right, it will bring financial gain to you as well, right? So
Yeah.
why not, right? It not only will bring financial gain, it will bring brand love, right? So, but it's really
Mm.
constantly
Mm.
understanding what these needs are, right? And how do you deliver it in the best possible way, not necessarily the most expensive
Mm.
way, right? But the best way, right? So that's how again we've, I guess, applied design even in the type of work that we do. We've evolved it so that again it creates more impact, right? So yeah, I think it's in the company and the type of work that we do. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
um
That's great,
yeah.
Michelle. Thanks for sharing. And as someone who as an entrepreneur and somebody who wants to be inspired and who wants to make an impact, even at the personal uh, basis, individual basis, I think what you're saying is really, really relevant and really, really
You're
useful. So
Yes,
welcome.
thanks,
Michelle.
Michelle.
Thank you so much. It's just been such a privilege to have you on our podcast today, right, Jose? I mean, learning
Definitely.
so much from you today, Michelle, about how really, when you said earlier that you designed your company because you wanted to also be authentic to yourself about uh, creating a company that you would want to work for. And
Mm.
I think that energy that you placed in that intention that you placed, really influenced how your company is continuing to evolve, how it has shifted in many ways, but also you're also attracting, I would say, your soulmate clients.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
you're aligning with
Right.
them. Yeah, you're like
Yeah.
Yeah.
soulmates,
Soulmates.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just love that when I had the privilege with Jose to be in your office, the energy was really great because I felt like these are people who really want to elevate the lives of others. And it was in how you were talking, it was in the ideas that you were sharing, and it was also in, I know, the projects that you've put together, and how um, there's just this commitment to owning one's purpose. And I am just so thrilled that our audience now will get to hear this podcast. And Jose and I would like to again thank you for being with us today on Brand and Purpose. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much.
And
It was
yeah,
fun.
Thanks, Michelle.
thank you. We had fun too. Goodbye, everyone. And please enjoy, listen to this podcast again. If you know, there's listen to our other episodes when you get the chance, and add us on Instagram at my LifeCraft, and also my LifeCraft as well on Facebook. Thank you so much, and see you on our next episode. Goodbye, everybody.